Good evening. My name is Bob Liff, and this is the CUNY Forum, a monthly town meeting that brings prominent New Yorkers together with faculty and students of the Edward T. Rogowsky Internship Program in Government and Public Affairs. We're fast approaching the 2020 census, and I am hard-pressed to find any New Yorker who does not think we need a full count of all residents, not just citizens, not just documented residents, not just those who are not homeless and have a roof over their heads, but all residents, as it says in the Constitution. There is a persistent undercount in New York and other cities across the country where hard-to-reach populations reside, and that undercount hurts those cities in many ways. The census is the basis upon which so much of government operates. It decides how many congressional seats states get in the House of Representatives, which is all the more important with the Electoral College bias in favor of smaller states becoming apparent as both Presidents Trump and George W. Bush were elected despite losing the popular vote. It's the basis of federal funding formulas for local support of affordable housing, anti-poverty programs, law enforcement, transit, and highways. You name a service provided by the federal government, it is probably distributed based on census results. It's a basic part of political science revolving around who gets what, when, and how. And New York has not fared well of late, either in terms of representation or resources. It's all the more important with an administration in Washington headed by a New Yorker with a pronounced hostility to the residents of his hometown, particularly the majority that does not check the box for non-Hispanic white on the census form. The Commerce Department, which carries out the census and is headed by another New Yorker, has tried with mixed success to throw roadblocks in the way of a full count, most prominently by trying to include a citizenship question, which federal courts have stymied. And it's why local and state governments, along with church groups, social service providers, libraries, immigrant activists, and others, have been gearing up for next year's count, trying to ensure we get our fair share when all is said and done. The controversies, since of course this is New York and there are always controversies, center on how dedicated and sufficiently funded those efforts are, and we'll get into all of that. But first, an advertisement for CUNY students. The CUNY Census Corps is hiring now for $15 an hour jobs starting in January to assist in ensuring a full count of New Yorkers. Applications are available through the website listed below on your screen, or you can go to cuny.edu/census, and it'll eventually take you to the application, which is due November 14th. I'm old, and if I can find it, I'm sure you can find it also. We are joined by 4 New Yorkers who take part in analyzing, reporting, and carrying out census activities in New York. Andrew Beveridge, a Queens College sociology professor, is perhaps the city's best-known demographer who has been studying population trends in the census for a long time. Joanne Yu is the executive director of the Asian American Federation, which has been preparing to ensure immigrants in particular are counted next year. Esmeralda Simmons is the executive director of the Center for Law and Social Justice at Medgar Evers College, and along with Professor Beveridge, was a member of the New York State Complete Count Commission, which was charged with coming up with ways to maximize that count, or to put it another way, minimize the undercount. And Samar Khurshid is a senior reporter at Gotham Gazette who's been covering the census and will tell us what it all means. Esmeralda, let me start with you. The challenges of the census in a city and a state with so many hard-to-reach populations, the stakes are very high.
They are extremely high. New York City and New York State have so much to lose if we just lay back and let the chips fall where they may. Unfortunately, particularly among Black New Yorkers, the majority of the residents of New York City, the New Yorkers, have said that they're not interested in the census. So that means that we don't just have to tell them about it. We have to convince them that it's safe and it's easy, and it's easier than going to Amazon.com and ordering a t-shirt. But the real significance here is the lack of support on the federal government, and the big question, what is the state government going to do? So far, nothing. The city government is historic, has been historic in putting forth $40 million for the census, more than any other city in the country, but we're waiting for that money to drizzle down. That's the big problem. Everybody says, let's have the community people, let's have the trusted voices speak to folks. There's no money for the trusted voices, and we don't know when it's happening. By the time it happens, we'll be squeaking a lot in a very short period of time. Who's going to listen?
Joanne, when you're talking about immigrant communities, you're talking about hard-to-reach communities. These are communities that don't react well to somebody saying, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. And what are the challenges? What are you doing? How do you have language issues, and you have
Absolutely.
people who are not documented, who are
Absolutely.
particularly concerned, especially with the Trump hostility.
Absolutely. So the Asian American Federation is a census information center. So we have been gearing up for this moment for a couple years already. We've been having lots of internal conversations, figuring out what the plan is going to be. We're also in New Jersey working with the folks there. But the biggest fear, I think, for us is ultimately the citizenship question. There were 6 months of everybody, the Trump administration beating their chest on, trying to figure out who he's going to exclude, who we are going to exclude. And when the lawsuit happened, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of removing the question. Then, there was like a hot second of news to say, the citizenship question is removed. So when we go out and do outreach in the community, that is the one question that still comes up. I think for the Asian American community, the biggest challenge is going to be our diversity. We are at least 10% in 26 of the 51 council districts. I think people think like, oh, Asians live in, 4 enclaves, but that's not true. We are everywhere. We need to reach every person. Obviously, we have to do it in all the different languages, 36 track languages, not counting dialects. So we know that our work is cut out for us, but. And there was also, the Census Bureau did a survey themselves, and they asked the question of, are you going to fill out the census? Asians had the highest number of no, we are not going to fill out the census at 55%. So, those are scary statistics for us. So we totally agree that, this is it. Like, we need the funding to come down
Now.
because we should have started, 5 months ago.
And the state efforts in particular are being viewed by people who pay close attention to this, including people on your commission, as half-hearted at best. I mean, how has this changed over time? Are there more creative ways? This is going to be the first online census.
Yeah, partially at least online.
I mean, we have the option of going online to doing it. Right. So, I mean, is this a very spotty performance?
Well, I think the state, is taking the commission that Esmeralda and I are both on, had 16 members at one point, 8 appointed by the legislature, 8 appointed by the governor. And so basically it was dominated by the governor because the minority had 2 appointments and they only actually made one of the, and so the problem is that there was $20 million allocated for New York State. And if you want to scale this against some other states, because New York State, just so everybody realizes this, according to Election Data Services, which is an entity in D.C. That's sort of a trusted entity on making estimates, estimates that New York is going to definitely lose 1 congressional seat and is on the cusp of losing 2. So with the chance of losing 2 congressional seats, you would expect that they would actually really, go the second or third mile to try to get the seats. Because as you pointed out in your opening statement, the census is really about 2 things. I mean, analysts like me use it for research, but the real thing the census is for, money and power. It divides money and divides power. So the extent to which we don't have power, which is really relates to the congressional delegation, is a serious problem. And in the context of all of this, Governor Cuomo was asked, why don't you do more? New York could lose 2 seats. And he said, well, that's okay. New York has a pretty big congressional delegation. And so it's like an amazing thing to me to watch this, and I know Esmeralda was there too, basically saying, who cares? So, the state thing here, compared to California, which has allocated almost $200 million, and they are down to lose no seats. So if, in fact, California gains a seat, New York loses 2, we'll know why.
Samar, you've been covering this soup to nuts. Mm-hmm. And with all the problems in the state and the problem of lack of funding, of hiring by the Census Bureau itself, you've been talking about people in libraries in particular are doing a huge outreach for people who are not either computer savvy or don't have a computer.
Right.
You have social service agencies. You have immigrant activists and ethnic leaders. I mean, this is a pretty well-aware community of activists.
Right, and there's particular challenges this time around. Like Joanne said, there's the citizenship question that had sort of a chilling effect on immigrant communities. But there's also the challenges that have always existed, that the city and the state have always been aware of, that there's hard-to-count populations like children under the age of 5, seniors, predominantly black communities, people who live in public housing, the homeless, which the city has a huge homelessness problem, which recent reports say has been understated. And so how are we going to count the homeless?
Well, this is one area in which the feds say we have more homeless.
Right,
than the
exactly,
city. So
exactly.
maybe that works to our benefit.
I
in
know,
terms
right?
of the census.
And the city is going to be working with the feds to do what's called group quarter outreach, where they're going to count what are group quarter populations, which is the homeless, shelters, and also the DSS, Department of Social Services, and the Census Bureau are going to spend 3 days counting the street homeless. So these are efforts that could still miss, this largely invisible population in the city, and where there's other places where the digital literacy is a big issue, because when we're talking about people like seniors, we're talking about rural areas. These aren't places that you have either access to the internet, high-speed internet, or people who are unfamiliar with how to use computers or high-speed internet and phones. So this is where the libraries come in. They have to sort of do the outreach and show people that you can come here. It takes you 2 minutes to fill out the census. You can do it on your phone, but if you're not familiar with it, we'll help you. And that's why 219 libraries, pop-up centers at elected official offices, at houses of worship, at community centers, and this is going to be key in making sure that everyone fills it out, because what they want to do is ensure that the self-response rate is as high as possible. Last time it was 62% compared to...
That means people who respond before they have to come out and look for you.
Exactly.
Right.
It was 62% in 2010, compared to the national average of 76%. And this time the Census Bureau thinks it's going to be as low as 58%, which isn't good because it's underfunded the number of enumerators, who are the door knockers who come and ask you to fill it out. If there's less funding for that, that means that the city has to focus on the initial phase and get people to respond.
Andy, let me ask you a technical question. When I covered the census going back to 1990 as a reporter, there was significant discussion, it seems like it's an idea whose time has come and gone, about statistic sampling as a more accurate way to try to come up with a count, even though the Constitution seems to say a head count. Because we're talking about 320, 330 million people. And that's hard. It's hard to count that many people.
Right. No, I think what happened was that there was a question about the adjustment in, I believe it was 90, and the Census Bureau itself, all the staff members of the census, all staff directors, the associate directors, they all recommended adjustment, except for the guy who was over the field. And then it went to the same way it would now go to Wilbur Ross. It went to the
Commerce Secretary.
Commerce Secretary, who happened to have been Bush's campaign chairman. And so I'm sure it was just like a scientific judgment, they decided to not adjust. And it hurt New York by about, I think it was about 250,000. Since then, however, they have had a system called LUCA, which is huge, local updated census addresses, which has allowed, particularly New York, Joe Salvo, who's now he's chief demographer, he was head of planning, to send in addresses that they didn't have. So they get to inspect the census addresses. And so in 2000, everybody had a pool on. I do work for the Times, so we all had a pool on how big will the count be, and no one had taken above 8 million. 8 million. There used to be this show Naked City. There's 8 million stories in the Naked City, and this is one. New York had never been at 8 million, and it got over 8 million in 2000, and I think about 250,000, maybe even 300,000 of those count is due to Joe Salvo finding addresses that they weren't willing to find. And in the middle of this decade, when the Republicans were in, they were talking about only allowing one to count if you're on the certificate of occupancy.
Right.
and that Joe got that stopped. But I mean, that's the kind of, there's all sorts of tricks. It's
In fact, just today, the Department of City Planning is sending 100,000 newly constructed units as addresses to the Census Bureau.
Yeah.
They just testified to this yesterday.
That's all that construction folks that we
Right.
have to dodge.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just, those things are very serious. I mean, in New York, New York State actually did a very good job on LUCA for the state. The city has always done a good job.
This is the first time the New York State
But
has
that's
done a
the
very
first
good
time.
time.
So
And that's great.
That could offset to some extent the expected congressional loss.
Right.
They sent in 750,000 addresses. And I know Esmeralda and I were sitting in some of these meetings, and you could hear the people saying, they couldn't find us in 2010.
Right.
And so that's a really important thing, because if they have an address, and this is like secret, you shouldn't tell anybody this. If they have an address and they don't find you in the in your apartment, they try a few times. I think they're going to actually cut down the total number this time. But if they try a few times, they will make somebody up and put them in there. And that actually is, that's called imputation. So even though adjustment's illegal, which is a statistical process, imputation, which is also a statistical process, is perfectly legal.
Well, there's going to be a test.
Imputation?
Joanne, jump in here. When you're talking about, there are difficult to reach people, and there are people who don't want to be reached.
Thank you.
You have to, and you have to deal with both of them.
Absolutely.
And it's not just Asian American.
Absolutely.
It's Hispanic immigrants. It's African immigrants. It's the whole soup that makes up New
Native
York.
New Yorkers.
Sometimes the rich won't let you in their building.
Speaking of
that's
native,
true.
Speaking of native New Yorkers, pardon my doing a little advertising here. One of the groups I work with is the American Indian Community House, and it's not well known that New York City is home to the largest indigenous urban population
That's right.
in the country. Unlike out west, where the people tend to come from nearby nations, we have people, indigenous people like immigrants, migrants, come from everywhere. And there was 110,000 people counted in 2010, which is widely believed was a significant undercount. And they're beefing up to count their people.
That's good.
Yeah.
Nobody should be
For next
invisible. No community should be invisible.
Absolutely.
And every community has to make sure that their contribution to New York City is cited in the official numbers.
But it's also not that every community should be counted. This is not a competition where you don't want the other guy to be counted.
Absolutely.
We want everybody to be counted.
Competition with other states.
Yeah. I think the challenge for the Asian community was that the Census Bureau didn't have the funding, so they cut funding for the outreach to the South Asian community. Fastest growing community, some of the poorest New Yorkers are South Asian communities. So if there
Bengalis,
wasn't
Pakistanis,
absolutely,
right.
so if there wasn't outreach to them, there wasn't any media buys. What is going to happen? I know that city is going to spend a lot of money doing, filling the void. But I think also for the Asian community, the challenge is going to be that for 17% of the Asian New Yorkers, this is their first time doing the census. They all came
Right.
after
Yeah.
2010.
We're an immigrant, we're an immigrant city.
Absolutely. So they've never done this before, and it's your interaction with federal government, right?
Government.
After all the scary things we're hearing, anti-immigration policies, we've heard deportation.
But you also see, I just want to, you also, there's a long and dishonorable history of immigration scams in this city, where immigration lawyers will call you and say, I'll get you your card, give me your money. There were census scams.
It's happening already.
And it's
already.
And it's people who are, and it should be known that if the census is not going to ask about your banking information, it's not going to ask about your voting registration,
Social Security number.
It's not going to ask your Social Security number.
It's not going to ask you
gonna
to donate
about
to Trump.
religion. And
I've gotten a thing like that, the official National Republican Census.
Right.
Oh my God.
So so you have to be, have a certain degree of New York street sense to know that if anybody's asking you those questions, it's not for the census.
So what happens if you are vulnerable? The things that we need
That's
to think
right.
about, right? I know that I've been following some of the work that you've been doing, talking about the seniors and how vulnerable they are. They're such easy prey. And I know that Gail's staff had the assistant
Gail Brewer.
Gail Brewer's
Manhattan.
deputy had already, he put something on Facebook that he'd been buying up all of the the website addresses.
Yes.
Because,
Right.
And somebody had, he posted that today. And
This
he
was
said,
very clever. Just so, I mean, he brought up Get Counted NYC, Census NYC, just to protect against somebody buying those.
Exactly.
Right.
Those
he spent like
labels.
$400
Yeah.
just to buy up all those sites.
The Bureau,
and he's willing
right,
to,
exactly.
Yeah.
and he's willing to give them to reputable organizations
Right.
to use them.
Right.
And
It's very interesting.
The city is very aware of this because they're talking to social media companies like Twitter and Facebook, which can be used to spread this misinformation in very targeted ways and easily at very low cost. And they're very aware of this, so they're trying to preempt it as much as possible. And they're making sure that everything that they do is secure and private. And that's going to be a challenge for them. So
I suspect, Andy, that for all the hostility in political Washington, the political Trump administration, the census professionals want to do the right thing.
Yeah, I think the census
been
professionals,
great.
they do, but the problem is that they're constrained. I mean, Wilbur Ross is their boss.
Right.
How would you like that? And I think I don't think we could take away. I mean, I see this census as the most threatened. I've worked with census data since '70. I see this as the most threatened census since that I've ever lived through. Because first off, the citizenship question, you think it's gone, but they're trying to get it from administrative records. They just asked for everybody's driver's license, including their eye color. Now, New York refused or hasn't really been asked, and most states are refusing, but they're trying to take administrative records, which is very, very difficult, and most experts think it's impossible. But Trump, when he had his hissy fit when they dropped
And he wrote an executive order for this.
Yeah, when they had a hissy fit and they dropped the citizenship question, they went and said, okay, we're going to go and do the administrative records. And the Census Bureau, the people around it, and I happen to know them, have sort of clicked their heels and say, yes, boss, we're going to do it because they're really beholden to Wilbur Ross. And the thing that this reminds me of is a very dark period for the census, which was in 1942 when the census data was used and the Census Bureau
Yes.
officials helped round up Japanese, you probably
Americans.
That's right.
yeah, Japanese Americans and put them in internment camps out in the West. And so there's a very serious problem with this notion that, they're very good professionals, but the people calling the shots are the, are the Trump administration. And Wilbur Ross, although he was apparently an enumerator in 1960 or 1950, and he did give them a bunch of money, they really, really, really want to use the citizenship to disenfranchise children and non-citizens.
Well, you've also seen it even in things like trying to tackle birthright citizenship.
Right.
And
Right.
redefine-
Oh, yes.
And all of this has
Exactly.
got to
Redefine
scare
what
immigrants.
citizenship-
Against human
Yeah.
rights law, right?
Right.
But of course, we all know that they are not really that concerned about what the law says. I want to point out the fact that there, in New York City, everybody has seen African immigrants on the streets. They're licensed peddlers. They do shopping bags and they do purses and scarves, etc. But last time around, nobody could find them when it came to the census. And that's only one African immigrant community. All the people from the Caribbean that are immigrants, many of them don't want to be found, and I could say the same about African immigrants, that they don't want to be found because they don't trust government.
Right.
It's not even this government. They don't trust government at all. They have had bad experiences in their home country.
many cases,
and,
that's why
and
they're
they
here.
that's why they're here.
Right.
And I'm not pointing out any particular country. And they really do not think that interaction with government will lead them to a good place.
I mean, that's part of the challenge, right? For the last, since Trump came to power, advocates and legal rights groups have been warning immigrants, if the federal government comes to your door, don't open the door without a warrant.
Open it, right?
Don't open the door if you don't see a warrant. And now you have to convince them the other way around that it's in your interest to open the door. And
So
fill
what
out
we're
that
actually
questionnaire.
saying
Very
is
interesting.
Yeah.
self-report.
Right.
So nobody comes to your door.
Exactly.
and
That's
also,
what we're saying.
Also,
Yeah.
the other
Fill
thing,
it out. So nobody comes. Go
this-
to the library.
I don't
Fill it
want
out.
to. You shouldn't say this, but if you are undocumented and you have a concern, you should fill out the census. But you probably should put down that you should probably just fill out the census, but they are going to try to figure out who is and isn't a citizen from, well, the biggest record they can use is Social Security, which does not have address on it. So it's a very big problem. And the woman who was at the Census Bureau trying to do this administrative records thing is now at Georgetown, and another person who was there is now in Michigan, and they all think this is impossible. But they claim they're going to do it. And then the second thing that happened was they were going to do a test of the citizenship question, and they rolled it before the Supreme Court opinion. So it was still going on, and this came up.
Supreme Court opinion saying you can't
do it.
Right.
But then people still got a thing in the mail saying,
right?
what's, citizenship, and people were, and particularly at the Westchester meeting, which they came, the people came and they said, of the commission, they said, why are they doing this? I thought the citizenship question was gone. And so, there's been a bunch of things like that I think are really, really troubling. And hopefully, and I think largely, though, it's the hostility. Because you have to remember, in 2010, there was not the level of hostility.
Oh, yeah.
We had the Obama administration, and even in 2000, when Bush was in, there was not the same hostility toward the census that there is now.
I have to just go to the core here. Why the hostility?
Right.
I call it fear of a black, brown, and Asian United States.
Right.
They want to manipulate the numbers so that this country still has majority white. That's it, because that's who they think this country is about. They have their opinions about it, but trying to manipulate the data so that they can say that this is who real America is about.
Which one of the things I remember in covering this census, I remember covering this census in 1990, and for the first time in this city, I can't remember if it was in 1990, this is one of those oxymoronic terms.
It was 1990.
A majority minority.
Majority minority,
city.
exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Of course.
New York City.
Right, that
Population.
just as a term. That
Yeah, the
doesn't
people
really
get
roll off.
really upset about that, because we covered that at the Times.
But I also remember it was the first year, for instance, that a majority of Hispanics were not Puerto Rican.
Right.
That's right.
And,
That's right.
and it's a case of where demography drives politics. For Puerto Ricans, they're citizens, even if Trump doesn't believe they're citizens. They're citizens. Immigration is not an issue. Once you have a majority of Hispanics who are not Puerto Ricans, immigration moves to the top of the agenda. So it's a case in which demography drives the political agenda.
Well, that's true, but remember Rudy Giuliani?
I do remember.
Unfortunately, we have to see his face very, very frequently nowadays.
Ukrainian guy.
2000, Rudy was mayor, and he said, going into the census, on this very topic about immigrants, and this is a shocking quote, but it's true. He said, I love all immigrants, legal or illegal. And so in the 2000, but he was a lot more hostile to the black community.
Oh, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
so the
He made it known.
The interesting thing in the 2000 census, in many sort of immigrant sort of areas, there was very good turnout, but in black areas, particularly upscale black areas like Laurelton, and there was not. And
Southeast Queens.
yeah,
Queens,
and
exactly
the
right,
reason is that the black community felt the hostility from the government. And in the Chicago, it was upside down, because in Chicago, it was a black mayor, and they did serious outreach to blacks. So this outreach and the tone, I think, is very important and I think the fact that the tone at the top is so hostile to immigrants and to anybody, you're right, anybody who's not white, and if you're white and probably are not anti-immigrant, then you've given up your race and class.
Right.
You're
Privileges, right?
You're a traitor.
you're a traitor. You're
Not a true Trump follower. That's
you're
what
a
Twitch
traitor.
today, right?
So, but I think that, I'm joking about this, but I think this is a serious, serious problem. It's something that we've never seen. Where the government is actually attacking a large part of the country who you would hope.
Well, we've seen it before, unfortunately. Remember, we had a large part. At one point, there were more enslaved people in the country than there were not enslaved. So we've seen that hostility before. This is flipping it all the way to the 21st century.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it looks quite similar.
Yeah,
It may not be called slave codes, but they didn't want to count enslaved Africans as whole people. We all know the percentage that they wanted. They wanted to put in the Constitution.
Right.
So this is an ongoing, right, 3/5. It's just an ongoing problem. I want to say something about that 3/5 though.
Yeah.
In the black community in New York City is the lowest counted the lowest counted community, particularly in central Brooklyn, in the country.
Yeah, that's true.
In the whole country.
Yeah.
That's the level of stay away. We don't want you.
Right.
And that's not even necessarily an immigrant community.
No.
Right.
No. Well, there's large numbers
Right,
of
there
immigrants,
are.
but there's
Probably both. There's
equal
probably both.
numbers of folks that are born in this country, citizens, but there is still uniform hostility,
Right.
and that goes across
Let me ask you
class.
a-
Roughly
across
80%
class.
of Brooklyn is a hard-to-count community, where
Exactly.
like self-response rates tend to be low.
Right.
Let me ask a question
Well,
about
40%.
because I don't know the answer to this. Does anybody know how the online process is going to work?
So they will, beginning in March, they're going to mail out codes. It will involve a physical mailer, but they'll mail a digital code to about 80% of
A postcard.
a postcard, and that will have a digital code saying, "Go online, fill this in," and then
Will that code be tied to an individual person?
Address.
Or-
Address.
an address.
Everything's tied
yeah,
to address.
everything-
Address,
yeah.
yes.
So then it'll tell you to go online, fill it out. If you
You
don't,
use your smartphone.
right, you can use your phone. It takes 2 minutes, 10 questions, simple. If you don't respond to that, they will send another, and then after that, they will send. And you can also request a paper questionnaire and then send that in.
Is there?
After that, if they don't respond the second time, then they send you a paper
Yeah,
questionnaire.
exactly.
This is-
The third
No,
one.
And
I
there's
should-
also a group, there's 20% who get a paper questionnaire first time, and
Right.
then there's a small group that they actually hand deliver a paper questionnaire.
Right.
So I
Testing the methods, right?
I think this is not as, I don't think the digital thing is as frightening as people think, because
No.
it's
Well, no,
Right.
Scott
No.
Stringer did a
Right.
survey, and he said 30% of New Yorkers
Don't
do,
have
do not have internet.
But that's why the library is so important.
Down the libraries, bless them.
Well, we were hoping the state would fund the libraries, and guess what?
Oh, they funded nobody.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, this is a question I should know. Does your name go on the census form?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the names of every family member
Right.
in your household, including children.
Right.
The the largest group in the whole country that have not been counted are children under 5. It tends to be that people think they should count the adults, but those children really don't count. It's not important to name them. Some people don't want to put their children's names down on anything for fear. Other people don't want other people to know how many children they have in a household because there's only supposed to be so many people in the household, and that goes across the board in terms of people doubling up, tripling up, people living in public housing, all sorts of, a lease saying.
The housing authority is not going to get this data on you, right?
No,
Right.
absolutely. And the housing
Right.
authority
Right.
is pushing for everyone
Right.
to fill it out so there
Right.
can be more affordable housing built.
Exactly.
So
Right.
They have a extra question that kind of says, are there any babies we forgot that you forgot to mention? I mean, there is an
Little
extra.
thing at the end,
Because
right.
it's really not, I mean, it's 10 questions, but a couple are repeated. Actually.
Right.
is there a long form?
No.
No,
No.
that's the
No,
American
that's been
Community
eliminated. That's been
Survey.
eliminated
Yeah.
in the census. In
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
Dicey.
that's been shifted to something called the American Community Survey, which is every year.
Yeah.
Okay, so because there used to be
Yeah.
a short form that everybody got, and some people got a longer form.
Right.
Yeah.
The American Community Survey, which, like I said, is every year, that is sent to a very small section of the population, and that's extrapolated to sort of
a
make more
sampling.
determinations about certain.
And it's
segments
very
of the population.
detailed.
Over 5
There's
years.
no economic question
Right.
on the census.
Over
They don't ask
fi-
you your income.
Yeah.
Over 5 years, it's basically roughly the size of the long form. So they ask it every year for 5 years, so it's more timely.
And that's a statistical sampling. That's not.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
it's done very well. I mean, one of the issues on the back to the immigration is there was a study done which shows first that people do lie. If you ask the immigration question, they do lie and say they're citizens. And in fact, I was doing a redistricting case out in Islip, and I thought they were going to come after us on that. That the Latinos are not frank about their immigration status. And I think that one of the things they're hoping with the administrative records is to claim that the undocumented and non-citizen portion of the population is larger, so it will undercut the minority rights, particularly for Latinos and Asians. so that, you know, and their ability to get a minority district.
Right.
And,
And it moves into redistricting.
yeah, and it moves,
Exactly.
but they were trying to do that. That's,
Right.
Yeah, but congressional districts are not based on citizens. It's congressional
Based on
districts
population.
are based
General
on
population.
population.
Well, there is a
There was
case from
now. There
Alabama.
was a case. Right. Go
no,
ahead,
it's
go
still,
ahead,
it's
go
still in action, active. There's a case
So-
from Alabama where they're trying to cut out undocumented from the apportionment count.
Well, I mean, and we get issues like prisoners who are in. Who
No, but this is
Right.
a case that the judge is let going forward.
Current.
Current.
Go back to the prison population.
Yeah.
Right.
10 years ago, we had a major victory when we ended prison gerrymandering in New York State. Very,
This is
very
about
succinctly.
representation.
But yeah, very, very succinctly. What has been happening in the past is that they would take people who are in state prisons and they would count them where they were imprisoned. Those
As if that is
as if they were
residence.
going about business in those counties and cities and or rural areas.
Which the upstate communities liked quite a bit because that increased proportionally
Right.
their representation in the state legislature.
Exactly.
So a funny story. I was testifying
Republic.
upstate.
Well, excuse me, but that's not the case.
Oh no! But what
Not
happened,
anymore.
so therefore it created things that we call ghost districts,
Right.
Right.
where most of the people in the district were actually people in prison, and somebody could get elected there. We challenged that in the state legislature. We had a victory in the state legislature, and this is even before there was a Democratic majority in the Senate, and they abolished it by legislation.
Right.
Then
Meaning that the
then it
people-
was challenged in court, and we won in court. But now we have to make
Abolished it, meaning that the people would be counted
where they had
lived,
lived before they were in prison.
Right. They're
which
moved.
tended to be the city.
That's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Right.
Right.
Therefore,
Right.
Or other states. So that's going to sort
Right.
of dilute the power of what tends to favor Republicans.
Exactly.
And so the balance of power between sort of rural and urban New York is going to sort of probably even out a little bit more in the next redistricting. Yeah.
and we have to make sure that they continue to not have that prison gerrymandering
Right.
occur, because there is going to be a different type of redistricting in New York State,
Yeah.
and we have to watch very carefully what that commission, that districting commission, is going to do.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about what
All
the
this is based on census, folks. That's why we're talking about it. It's all based on census, and there is no adjustment of population data when it comes to determining congressional seats, legislative seats, and even seats for things like county sheriff. you know.
Right.
Let's talk about what the census means. I mean, what kinds of things are distributed? What kinds of, housing money? I mean, give me some sense of what it all means.
SNAP funding, which is more colloquially called
stamps,
food
yeah.
stamps. Funding for public housing.
Public
Medicare,
housing.
Medicaid.
Food, I'm going to say food, water, streets, education, hospitals,
enforcement.
Yeah.
Exactly.
law enforcement, parks, anything. You can walk through the city right now. Anything that you're touching is affected by federal funding.
Public service. And let's not forget, it also affects where businesses invest their money.
Yes.
Because if they're looking at increasing population in a certain district, is a real estate firm going to build more housing where they see the population going down? Probably not. If they see the population going up, they might build more housing. But if that depends on real numbers. If there's an undercount, they might not invest in the right places.
Right.
Yeah, there's someone
Consistently.
at George Washington is doing a study, and I think it's like 82 programs are and it's
Specifically linked.
yeah,
Right, exactly.
and there's something like $900 billion.
And then you also have to understand
it's
that they
really,
give these
I mean-
grant funds to states.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Community
and
block
then
grants
community
and-
block grants,
right.
and then the states decide where they're going to spread it out.
Right.
So that's why I said sometimes even the air we breathe and the water we drink is affected by the census.
And that's why we are in it for the fight of our lives right
Yes,
now.
we are.
Yeah, I really think we are.
Everybody has to be counted.
Yeah.
Everybody.
And that's
for all New Yorkers.
That's
we
how
have
the
to be
sort of
counted.
message has changed. Last time around, 2010, the messaging was all from the federal government. This fill out the census, it's your duty. This is what Julie Menon's, the census director, city's census director, has been trying to get the message across. That this time around, the city's in control. They're spending $40 million on this. A large part of it's going to be this public messaging campaign that starts in January, and that's going to be telling people, look, you need to fill this out because it affects how good the schools in your district are. It affects how public services.
But we
get
talked
you.
about the
Yeah.
CUNY, about the
CUNY,
hiring.
it affects CUNY.
It affects
Right.
CUNY, yeah.
Well, we talked about the CUNY Census Corps.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
And a lot of groups
Yeah.
are hiring people, gearing up,
Right.
using volunteers. Anybody can help somebody fill out a census form.
Right.
I mean, it's not as if you need some
Right. It's
only
not
an
voting
official
folks.
census.
Right.
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 You don't need to be a notary
Right.
in order to help somebody. So I mean,
And you can speak your language.
Yeah.
And help somebody that speaks
right.
your language, because the Census Bureau is not translating it.
That's
Except
a big
that-
deal.
Well,
they are
Language
to
access
And,
is a big
no,
deal.
very limited. They said 12 languages.
Right.
right.
And
What do we have?
But it's also the
125
case-
languages in New York City?
Maybe 200,
but
I
it's also the case
200?
that,
I think
that
across
the
the state,
census,
across the
in
state,
order to
yeah.
do language outreach, the census will not hire non-citizens.
Oh,
Well,
no,
they
no,
actually-
they changed
they
that.
changed
They got
That's
the waiver.
recent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Finally
Breaking
changed
news.
Yes.
They gave a waiver to New York City.
Okay.
To New York State. New York
New York
State.
State,
Yes.
yeah.
And so, but we've seen the successes.
I'm sorry,
because-
we're talking censuses here. They gave a waiver so that the Census Bureau in New York State could hire people who had green cards to work on
But
the
not
census.
undocumented people.
Not
No,
undocumented.
they have to
Not
have a
undocumented.
green
They have to have a
card.
green
Right.
card.
Yes. So in
They weren't even going to
2000
they weren't even going to hire people that had green cards.
Right.
Exactly. So in 2000, the Asian community's mail-in response rate was 63%. We did a lot of targeted outreach in the 2010 census. I mean, you know, we know what the magic sauce is. You've got to get the money to the community groups and people that the residents see every single day. So 2010, 71%, right? So we know that this is, you know, we know how to do this, but we need to have the funding released. We need to get folks hired. We need to train the workers. We need to, you know, prep them. We need to get our community. We need to have a message
Flyers
that
in
we,
our languages.
exactly.
Right, right.
We need
Haitian
to get
Creole,
this,
Wolof.
get
We
it
need
going.
to- we need it, right.
Exactly.
French.
Exactly.
It's also going to be great props for librarians. I mean, we're going to appreciate librarians even more than we do it.
And I have to commend the city. The first group of community folks that got money were the city libraries.
Right.
Yep.
And we need them so badly, and they're already gearing
Because
up.
And they're
not
training
only
about 1,000
because they
librarians.
have computers.
Yeah.
They have computers that
Publicly
people
available.
come-
Yeah.
And let's talk about the computer. Be careful about where you fill out your census form.
Exactly.
Don't be walking down the street filling out your census form. Please go to a library or someplace that's safe, like CUNY, and fill out your census
Right.
form there so that when you go online, nobody can snatch
Right.
the information out of the Ethernet. So it has to be done in a safe fashion.
Well, it's
the
a-
libraries have all the firewalls necessary, and they don't keep your data.
I want to go to a question, but there has been there have been reports that there were cyber criminals
Oh, yeah,
thinking
can't
about
wait, try to
targeting the
wait it.
census
Right.
as they targeted our electoral system.
Right.
With all due respect to the president not being the only person left who doesn't believe that happened.
Right.
So that's a very interesting point that you want to have kind of a hardwired.
Exactly.
So
And it's a great opportunity. I keep thinking about, you know, all the internet providers.
Right.
Is there an opportunity for them to step up here and create some centers, work with nonprofit organizations to give equipment, to be able to, you know, like, is there an opportunity for me? I keep thinking, how do I engage Verizon, Time Warner? You know, are they going to help us to
it's
set
too late
something
probably
up?
to do it now, right.
Exactly, but is there an opportunity for them to be able to, you know, share some resources?
let me take a question here. Tell us your name and your campus, please.
Good evening. My name is Kim Lawrence. My campus is Queens College.
Talk to Professor Beveridge.
No, sure.
I'm a Brooklyn College guy, so we have a little
Medgar Evers.
Okay, professor from Queens College. My question is, I just want to be clear. Is it that the federal government gives the state monies based on the population of the state? So in other words, if you don't fill out the census form and you're not counted, the state has less funds?
collectively.
Yeah, across a whole bunch of different programs. There's a guy at Reader, I think his name is, a writer at Georgetown, has been working this through to figure out exactly what each program does. It's in many of the programs there's embedded in there a population count,
Right.
like Section
8 housing.
Yeah, Section 8 housing, the
Title I.
Title I is what I was
Educational
thinking. Yeah, and all of that is based on counts. And so the count is very, very important. And then the other thing is, it also means the people who are going to decide who gets funded are also based on the count. So the
Right.
count it is, I mean, there have been wars fought over the census. One in Nigeria, one in Indonesia, because of the count. I mean, it's really serious business. It's really power and money.
And the
Let
state,
me
the state
make it
gets
very clear. If you have 100 people, if we have this room, and this group doesn't fill out the census, but this group does, we will get enough, and everybody has to eat. We will get enough money to feed them. Only enough money to feed this side.
But we'll have to
But we
spread it
still
out
have to
over
feed
everybody.
everybody.
Yeah.
That's
real-
education, that's housing, that's etc.
Yeah.
And the state gets between 70 and 80 billion
Yeah,
from the federal
that's what they
government.
said.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's been very low figure compared to
Right.
our real population.
Right.
And also compared to the amount of money they collect from New York.
And we wonder why schools are crowded.
New York's a donor state.
We wonder why we don't have enough teachers. We wonder why we don't have enough streets repaved.
Why public housing
This is
falling
also
apart.
why
Yeah.
when people say, I can't complain, I always say, you're a New Yorker. Of course you can complain. Yes, sir. Tell us your name and your campus.
Hello, my name is Max Vilikodne. I attend the College Staten Island, the part of the Macaulay Honors College, and I wanted to ask, besides an online census form that we're implementing in 2020, are there any other solutions that would help increase the amount of people that would, fill out the census, besides having that online alternative that limits the kind of stress and the stress of filling out a
Well,
census. in person.
hopefully it's easy, which is why, and it's quick.
But if you are illiterate and you have a census form online or in paper, you can call the Census Bureau and fill out your form by talking to somebody.
Right.
And they will then key it in and you will be counted.
Again, because the census employees are pretty good at what they do.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is not a, I assume that's spotty like anything else, but I think that it's people who are pretty dedicated to achieving what they want to do.
Right. I mean, if there's ways to improve response rates, the problem is the city and state can only do so much to the point of, going to someone's door and, getting them to fill it out, because that's up to the federal government.
But that will happen in April, right?
Right.
If people don't fill out the census,
Right.
the Census Bureau will have a list of people
Right.
of addresses.
Addresses,
that
not
did not
people.
answer.
But that's
And
going
they will
to
go to
be the
those
federal
doors.
government doing the hiring of census enumerators. They could put more money towards that, or they could rely on state enumerators. But I suppose that would require changes to federal
No,
law.
they're not going to rely on any.
No,
state
they're
money.
not.
But what we can do
Right.
is we can be ambassadors,
Exactly.
census ambassadors, community groups, advocate groups, CUNY students. We can be census ambassadors. We can tell our community that this is what you need to do. We can assist people in filling out the census. We can tell them where they could go to their library. To every CUNY campus is going to have a pop-up station where people can go. Students and the community can come in, and everyone's getting excited about that. Before they were like, we don't want that. Now they're like, yes, we want it.
I was at another census bound. We were joking that they should do I filled out the census stickers,
Ha-
like
hey,
election day.
I was talking about that just today,
Like
about
election day
printing
stickers.
those up.
Right. I filled
For
out the
census ambassador, I fill out the census
Yeah.
T-shirts, fill
And I
out the
think we need to
census.
impress upon our community too that if you don't want somebody to knock on your door from
Yeah.
the federal government, fill it out the
Fill it
first
out,
time
yeah.
quickly, right?
Yeah.
One of
So
the
they're not gonna
problems,
visit you.
though,
Very
is
important.
they have cut way back on the follow-up enumeration.
That's
right.
And I was talking to someone today who thinks that there will be a panic and because they had this theory that they weren't going to spend more than they did in 2010.
Right.
And it's ridiculous. And, what hasn't gone up in price since 2010?
Well, they're hoping to divert a lot of demand through the
No,
online
I
census.
hear all that. But I think you're going to
That's
find...
theoretical, all right?
Yeah, right. But I mean, the last
There's
time
no
this
test
happened
case here.
was when
this
Marty
is the test case.
Ritchie was director. When Ken Pruitt came in, he massively increased the coverage improvement program. And I think that if they don't do that, the chance of the proportion that they end up imputing is going to go way high. Some people have estimated that it may go from under 1% to as high as 10%.
Wow.
So I think that I think we're, when you talk about the three problems, that's one of them. The administrative thing on the administrative record thing is another one, and then they're talking about messing up some of the dissemination. This is probably too early to discuss that.
Right.
So I really think the census is under threat. I mean, it may be the 100 years, and the 1920 census was rejected by Congress and was not used for reapportionment. This may be the anniversary of that.
That's right.
And this may be how it's
That's
celebrated.
right. They didn't.
I didn't know anything about that.
Oh yes.
Right.
They just said we're not doing it.
We're not
We don't
taking,
like the,
we're
we don't
not
like the
taking the,
results, so therefore we won't do it.
we aren't
And
going
they
to take
did
the
no
results.
census.
They didn't reapportion.
So they kept the same seats.
Yes, that's completely illegal.
Yes, sir. Tell us your name and your campus, please.
Hello, my name is Darvin Marte, and I currently attend Queens College. And my question is, during the discussion, it was mentioned that the Black community is like the least represented in the census, and that the census plays a big part in paying for like school districts, even though housing taxes are what pays for our school districts. Do you believe that if the number of representation in the Black community goes up in the census, will these school districts get any better? Will the community get any better? Will crime rates go down because we will get more aid in those communities?
I believe that overall there will be more money. There's two parts here. There will be more money invested in our communities, the Black communities across the city of New York, in every borough. But there then has to be the will on the part of the city and the state to put the programs in place that will improve our communities. And it's not just safety, public safety, it's across the board. Our schools have usually the worst schoolhouses and the least experienced teachers, and the most crowding. And you could go down the line. I don't want to tell you about what the sidewalks, I should say the sidewalk, what the street bed is on my block in Bed-Stuy. Right. It's so bad that cabs don't want to ride down it. Trucks don't want to ride down it. There's big potholes that have never been fixed. Right. All of that could be fixed if additional monies came in. But then once the money comes in, we have to advocate for it to go to places.
Well, this doesn't.
It's a mix of political
and that
will.
will help our
The
community.
census doesn't change politics.
Right.
No, exactly.
It's a
And
mix of
pushing,
political
and
will
pushing and shoving.
resources, right?
That's right. Thank you.
But I mean, every time the education advocates push Governor Cuomo for more funding for foundation aid, he says we don't have
the money.
We don't have the money. But if you've got maybe billions more in funding from the federal government, he's going to have to come up with a better excuse than we don't have it.
Right.
So
I do think it does affect politics, though, because if you count, if there are more people counted in a district, like in a black district, and if you miss those people in the black district, then the district in and of itself will have less power. And so
That's right.
It is an
The same
allocation.
50, 100.
It is an allocation of power.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
But it also comes into play. This is, we were talking about redistricting, in particular in black districts, where, and this is politics, where you take those numbers and how you split up. You look at, what you can do with those numbers. Right. In 2000, you had the same 18 million people, and the way you divided them up, you could get a 65-seat Democratic majority in the Assembly, and a 5-seat Republican majority in the state Senate, dividing up exactly the same people.
Right.
So this is the starting point of politics. It's not the end point of politics.
That's why there's so much effort being put into stopping it. So we the people have to say, no, we count, we're visible, we count, we are here, count us, and count everybody in our household.
That's right.
Yes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Marcia Horn. I currently attend Medgar Evers. So my question really pertains to gentrification. And more so, how is the Census Bureau really going to identify those cases? If everyone, as we know in the Black community, a lot of individuals do not answer the questions for the censors, and a lot of West Indian immigrants, they prefer to stay, normal somewhere. They don't want to be bothered because of deportation, and also they feel like, what's the bother? They're going to do what they want to do anyway. So with the gentrification that's happening now, how can we assure, is there a way that we can really break down?
Because I'm running out of time, but this is the question that when somebody says, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you, it is not the most welcome
Convincing statement.
there is. That's not going to change, and which is why you've got those efforts to overcome precisely that question.
That's exactly right.
And it's funny. It's not just low-income neighborhoods of color. among the black community, it's also middle income and,
Yes,
and
and
upper middle
upper
income.
income,
That people who won't respond to the census. So that's more about changing how.
That's more cultural.
Yeah, it's more,
Let me
but
tell
it's
you
all about
something that's
changing
happened.
how you tell them what's at stake, which is that all the funding that funds social services and everything in their communities.
This already happened, and this goes directly to gentrification. First is the question of whether is Bedford-Stuyvesant, is Harlem still a black community?
Right.
The census will answer that question.
Right.
If black people don't fill it out, and the majority of the people that fill it out are Asian or Latino or Latinx or white folks, then it will be whatever the census says it is.
Exactly right.
And there's not going to be any arguing with that. Right here in my community, based on the American Community Survey, they took part of Bedford-Stuyvesant that still has tons of poor people in it, living in their family brownstone, but poor. They have the house, and that's all they have. And they said that part of Bedford-Stuyvesant was no longer a poverty district, and therefore we were not eligible to get certain types of educational funding, not just Title I, certain types of educational funding for Bedford-Stuyvesant. That has already happened, and that's because of what came out in the American Community Survey. But when this census comes out, if that confirms it, that part of the community is not going to get it.
We only have a couple of minutes left, but there also, I mean, you have issues like the standard metropolitan statistical area, which takes in Westchester and Suffolk, and makes us seem as if we have much higher incomes.
The average.
But that's an application of census data. That's a political question, as opposed to the baseline, which is the count itself.
Exactly.
And, all the fights start from the count.
And also, in New York City, when the term affordable housing, guess where they get that affordable
It's from the
determination from?
SMSA.
From the census.
Well, from the ACS, actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
From the area median income, right?
Exactly.
Because one of the arguments, of course, is affordable.
Well, they fight over, actually, the AMI, they fight over, I mean,
AMI is
Westchester
what
has
I
its
was-
own.
the AMI,
has
the average
affordable
median income area.
Westchester has its own, Rockland now has its own. I don't know, I think New York City, I don't know which part they're with now.
We count parts of Westchester and stuff. So which
No, not
Includes
for
in our
AMI, you
AMI,
don't.
right?
don't we?
No, Westchester AMI is like this compared to New York's. And Rockland's even higher.
Right, exactly. Right.
I think that's why we have to impress upon our communities, especially the vulnerable communities, people who are not going to fill it out, that census is an act of
Empowerment.
but civic participation. But it's really an empowerment to stand up and be counted. To say, I live here and I want, I pay taxes. I am.
You want
am a citizen,
hospitals?
and I want what
I'm an American.
and I want what's coming to me.
It's a benchmark for everything. It's a benchmark for the ACS. It's a benchmark for the current population. It's a benchmark for everything. If it's not filled out, even if you get information, it will actually affect how the ACS works.
Right.
The ACS.
What?
American Community
Survey.
Survey.
Yeah.
For the next 10
And
years.
this time around, Latinx people get to put their ethnicity along with their heritage. Asians get to put their ethnicity in,
they've always
and
had.
black people get to put our ethnicity in.
And
so
whites
if you're
too.
and whites too, and whites too.
There's
So
also
the new one is blacks and whites, and I'm actually really against this because I don't think they should have a thing with 330 million fill in the blank questions.
well. I'm
demographer's
going to
speaking,
run out of time, and I always make deadline. I want to thank everybody. Spirit of
Thank you.
discussion.
Ravenous.
And
Thank
we'll
you for
see
your
next
work.
time
Yeah.
on CUNY Forum. Thank you.
Thank you.